The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party, featuring weekly discussions on political news and current affairs. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party.
Right?
Yes, I've heard of it. Hey, everybody. See, we're already laughing, you guys. We're already joking over here. What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Black Tea Party. I'm your host, Stacey Ike. You can check with me on Twitter and Instagram at OneTakeStace. I have my phone with me and my computer, so I'm ready for their live tweets. And let me introduce my lovely co-host. How you guys doing?
What's going on? It's Anthony Martin, again, Black Fist activist on all social networks.
Nice. Explain that shirt.
Black Pride Mizzou, you know what we can do at PWIs.
Okay, next Mike.
Sorry.
Love that.
Yeah,
Sports, man. I'm sorry. My bad.
Gosh.
Hi, guys. Michael Timont, at Michael Timont on Twitter. Oh, and wait, you don't have the A in there for Black Fist, right?
No, it's BLK.
Yeah, because it took me a while to find it because I was like,
What's going on?
yeah, I'm dumb.
Right.
Anyway, it's spelled out on the screen at Michael Timont.
I would have did Black Fist activist, but the problem is when I created it, I got so many followers at the time. I was like, I'm just keep it how it was. That's a whole other story. College times up.
So this is an interesting week. We were just discussing before we started a couple things that we saw, didn't see, were happy about, were not happy about. So let's jump into the Honda discrimination topic. There were some stories that we all were, I guess, switching between each other.
Yeah.
That Honda basically was making people that were trying to finance their cars pay, was it $150 to $200 more if they were Black, Hispanic, or
Asian, which is the weird one to me. You think Honda would give a pass if you're Asian?
But
you would think. See, I hear that.
Maybe
joke.
not if you're Chinese,
but
which
it's
would
in
be
the
super
United
racist.
States, so it's, they're discriminatory, I guess, against all minorities
Right.
in this nation. So
Well, the
And
problem doesn't come straight from Honda.
It
either.
doesn't.
Let's
It
be
doesn't.
clear.
Yes.
It's dealers. It's the people in charge of the managers at dealerships that are artificially inflated. Like basically, what's happening is people are coming in. They're applying for the car loan, regardless of credit. They're upping the percentage that they owe, which is unfair and racist.
This is ridiculous. How does that many managers tag on to that though? Because it's more than one manager. It's more than 5 managers. It's more than 10 managers for you to pay $24 million in discriminatory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
Because
how do you get a?
It's not just Honda. It's not just the dealership. It's the systematic differences in America in general. Like when you have certain people running businesses, they feel they can handle it how they want. And if some of those people are, I guess, bigots in that sense, they're going to do certain things and, raise prices on financing. I mean, it starts at a very central location. I don't think Honda's taking the beating, but I don't know if it has to do with Honda per se.
And that's the interesting part. Like it is a beating. I mean, $24 million paying back. But my question is, who are they paying that to?
That'll go back to the people that they overcharged, and their interest rates, I believe, are being adjusted to the correct interest rate they should have gotten in the first place.
I would have just left Honda. I would never don't adjust nothing. I'm gone.
Honda, that's the kind of the thing, is we have a bunch of managers who acted on their own.
Right.
Because dealers are supposed to have, now Honda's having to go in. By the way, this isn't a problem in Honda proper anywhere else in the world. This is a problem here in America specifically. I tried to look up, and they don't have discriminatory things across. But somehow in America, I think I was reading a bunch of articles on this, and one of them pointed out, and this is a bit of a stereotype, not the worst one. It says a lot of minorities don't tend to haggle for prices either.
That's a lie.
I don't believe that.
That's what they said, they'd haggle price, not interest rate, and things like that. So they're using it. It looks like they're using people's. How do you put this?
But it might
so
not.
they're discriminating in a different way.
Saying,
they're taking their lack of knowledge of money and how it works.
Yeah.
And they were putting them in these interest loans because they're looking at the payment and not what the interest is. Does that make sense?
I do. It makes sense. And I don't think it's necessarily a race thing. I think it's also like if you're in a certain economic status, you legit don't have the knowledge to understand that.
And
I mean,
chances are you're going to get a Honda
Right.
over some other car,
Right,
which kind of
right,
creates
right.
it all comes back.
Right.
It's class. I think it's more of a class issue, but because of that,
They added-
the race is in there because of those where they're doing these, having these Honda dealerships, and I don't know. It's crazy. I don't really know what to think about that.
I was just really taken back by it because I decided it made me want to look through other cars. Did they ever, other brands?
What was it? It was
If I find out Toyota has anything, then I'll be.
as far as I know.
I just love Toyotas. Let's move on. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say that the same problem happened during the loan situation
Yeah.
with second chance financing and the negative interest loans. They did the same thing where a black family or a Hispanic family or Asian family would walk in for a loan, and I think part of it is they're trusting these people. Like, they're going to try and get me the best deal and stuff. And then what they would do is, even though they qualified for a regular loan, they made the money for a regular home loan, they were sticking them in these terrible negative interest loans or negative premium loans.
Right.
I'm being really nerdy right now, sorry. But they were doing that even though these families qualified for better loans.
Right.
So this is completely on purpose.
And none of those families were able to see the.
Yeah, they eventually sued and got some money back.
Yeah.
But what was it? Quicken Loans. Thank you.
Got it.
Sorry.
Got it.
Took me a second.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. It's something that happened this week that we had to touch on. So,
But look how many people are in a terrible financial situation and they're being taken advantage of further.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, what do rich people get? The best loan rates possible for walking in.
Right. That's so.
It's disparities.
It's-
I think.
I mean, yeah.
Our whole conversation today is kind of goes around that, and I think that's just kind of where it comes from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of that, this next topic is probably one of my favorites because I've been waiting for somebody to say something about this for a long time. I was very passionate about it in college. I want to make sure I have the headline right. So Obama outlines criminal justice reform plan after a year of the police killings and what's been happening brutality. He is, as of now, the first president ever to go to a prison. Today, was it in
El Reno, Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. Okay, got it. So today he went
He was
to.
greeted with the Confederate flags yesterday.
You said what?
He was greeted with the Confederate flags.
Oh, that's something I did not see.
Sorry, I just brought that up.
Very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
but with that said, so I don't know. I just thought this was a really dope topic. Basically, Obama took this time at the NAACP meeting. I think it's like the 106th annual meeting or whatever, and took the time to talk about prison reform and talk about what needs to happen, the jokes that are made that are not funny, the disparities that are happening, the difference in race, the difference in there's a word he used and I'm trying to remember, but anyway, just the numbers don't match up is what I read and what I understood. And I just absolutely love that he talked about it, and I wanted to see what you guys thought about it.
I mean, I knock the government and politicians all the time, but I think it's great. I think some of the conversation we've had previously about those battles that we need to win, you brought up the Confederate flag, and I said that wasn't necessarily something I think is justifying a battle being won. I think this is one. These are the little steps that are going to lead to the bigger steps.
And I thought about that.
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, this is where the direction we need to go. I mean, we've had presidents in the past that have, totally ignored this issue. We've had some that's made it worse. The fact that Barack Obama is trying to do something about it in his last, couple days in the White House. I think it's great. I don't know what else to say other than I'm happy to see the progress. Yeah. But it has no. I'm just saying it has to keep moving. The momentum has to continue.
Yeah.
I think that's where my conclusion always comes to. We always get caught up in that one victory, and we kind of just let it seep in too long. We got to keep moving.
Right.
I think if we're going to talk about the disparities in the judicial system, then we need to go to disparities in home ownership, and healthcare, and education.
Right.
And Barack Obama, he touched on those things, which also made me a little bit more I like him a little bit more because it's at least I know he's thinking about that stuff, and hopefully we'll see some things like that.
I think he was extremely honest in his speech. I thought it was so good. There was something he mentioned. And I knew this, but but I didn't know it was this bad, I guess. I know that we had an incarceration rate that was higher than a lot of other countries, but he said our incarceration rate is 4 times higher than China's. And then he said that there's 5% of U.S. people make up the world's population, but 25% of Americans are in prison.
Yeah. And
That's literally blew my mind.
Almost 50% of them are black.
Oh, it's past. I think it's past 50%.
It's a million
out of 2.3 million.
So it's almost 50%.
Yes,
that's insane. Because you guys.
And do you know how many of these people are non-violent drug users? And I'm not trying to. What's the word? I'm not trying to minimalize the effect of doing drugs and the crime that goes with that. But I was looking up some of the minimum.
But like that's the thing. Addicts are not criminals.
Yeah.
And everywhere else you've seen that, they've done it in Portugal, Amsterdam, all these other places where they don't put them in jail. They get them treatment and help. An addict is not a criminal. They're a sick person.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think there are some criminal tendencies that go along with the whole drug issue going around, but I think what does need to happen with the progression of the prison reform is, in fact, instead of throwing people in jail for 10 plus years, we need to start looking into those systems that help them out. Those facilities, offer those to them in probation, things like that, so they can get on their feet. If then, they're not following, the guidelines that we've given them, then it's kind of like, okay, we can see where it's happening. But the racial disparities there, I mean, it's there.
It's a problem just because I was looking at the minimum prison sentences throughout the years, and I don't know that much about drugs, so I was trying to figure out what each ounce meant or whatever the case is. But in general,
it's just weight. That's all that is.
Okay. So just to see the fact that 20 years is even a possibility for some that, I mean, that I really was not aware. I knew that a lot of black males have been in prison for a very long time, but I didn't always know that it just equated to the fact they did some drugs back in the day.
Stop and frisk is overtly racist. The way they were handling minorities, black and Latino, got stopped at a 5-to-1 ratio to white people. White people do drugs just as much as anybody else.
Absolutely.
And I think when we're talking about the drugs and you're talking about back in the day, I think it started with the whole crack cocaine issue that came up in the 1980s.
Yes.
They gave harsher sentences for crack cocaine, which was predominantly used by African Americans because it was in lower socioeconomic status areas. And they didn't have the money to use or to abuse the drug, the regular powder cocaine, which was more expensive and used by our white counterparts usually. And that's kind of where the disparity came up, and
it hasn't died down.
He passed the act in 2010 that would give those fair sentencing, but all those before then, I mean, they were getting sentenced 20 to life, things like that, and even Bill Clinton, my dad, shout out to my dad, he hipped me to Bill Clinton did the Law Enforcement Act, which basically made harsher sentences for drug offenders and things of that nature. So, I mean, we've been going on the downward up until Barack Obama came through and did that. So it's crazy how, I mean, just looking at all these things and how they're still in effect and how we're just now changing them. It bothers me. That's what's
crazy. It's been
for him to be poor people though.
For him to be the first president though to go to that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
How is that possible?
Well, why do they want him to go to prison? Because then he'd see how the private prisons are run. They're terrible.
But they need to be a part of that. Everyone's money is involved in that. How would you not?
The lobbyists make sure that he doesn't visit prisons.
I have a political question for you guys, if you guys know the answer to this. So I'm from Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, one of the bigger conversations was marijuana. And that a lot of people being put in prison, this is just specifically speaking to Massachusetts, I'm sure it's a United States issue. But the problem is that a lot of people were being locked up for having a joint on them or having a blunt on them. And so they finally ruled the process of you have to you can only be arrested. It's only a fine if you get caught with marijuana on you under an ounce. Is that something that has been ruled across the states, or is that...
That's a state-by-state thing.
That's
I think it's state-by-state,
thing.
yeah.
Actually, the college that I went to in Columbia, Missouri, they do a fine as well. I forget what they call it, but they don't arrest you. They give you a fine if it's under a certain amount. And that is state-by-state. But I think drug reform in general just needs to be revisited kind of how it is now, because it's crazy how people are doing life behind bars for an addiction that they have. Like, I understand it's an addiction of a drug,
problem.
That's plaguing certain areas, but it's still an addiction. Instead of locking them up and throwing away the key, that's not doing anything. By throwing someone in jail and not doing anything about it and just leaving them there for the time, they're not getting rehabilitated. Something else needs to take place, and I think that's the problem that we were having. And that's kind of what I'm saying with the sentencing reform that Barack Obama is doing. He's lessening these sentences, but we also need to talk about the reform that happens within the prisons while they're there to get that help. Because even if you say I'm going to lessen the sentence from 10 years to 5 years, that doesn't change the fact that when they come out,
they're still going to be addicted
they're still going to be doing, still going to be doing
or
drugs
they have
when
the
they come out. Now, if we use more of our utilities in our states to help these people while they're in there and try to get them back on the right track, then that's where this needs to go. That's where this needs to be.
How about not putting drug users in prison? Let's start there.
Well, I don't think it. I mean, if it's illegal, if it's still illegal right now, then
just because it shouldn't. God,
it not being illegal isn't legal.
Let's start there. Let's start at the
all
argument.
drugs should be legal.
Yes, they should be legal because we give power to the cartels. If the cartels didn't, by the way, since marijuana's been legal in California, Colorado, Oregon, that it majorly crippled the cartels. If you make those drugs legal, you want to know why gang violence, one of the reasons it went down in Los Angeles, because they weren't able to sling pot like they used to. Because when you want to go, would you rather go to a sketchy part of town and buy from a dealer where there could be cops around and stuff? Or would you rather go to a dispensary and safely buy your marijuana?
I'd probably rather watch Netflix.
I have mixed views on like drug use and legalizing all drugs. I mean, the reason I don't agree with, and we're going off topic, I know, but the reason I don't agree with
part of the topic.
The reason I don't agree with legalizing all drugs is because they're debilitating. Like not all drugs are marijuana.
Yeah.
Like not all drugs are going, show no adverse effects. We've seen from crack cocaine.
Okay, but we're not playing. That's my problem. This is where I go libertarian.
We're not playing doctor.
Yeah, we're not we're not doctors. B, we're not adult. Like this sounds insane.
We might not be doctors, but I feel like somebody's critiqued the drugs enough to know that some do cause
You know what causes more deaths per year than every other drug combined?
Alcohol. I know.
So if you're going to use that argument, you already lost because alcohol is completely legal. Tax it. Let's get help to people who need help and control it from there, which has worked in Portugal, Amsterdam, all the Nordic states.
And is that because alcohol is harder to make at home?
What?
Is that true? Because
you can make alcohol at home,
but it's harder to make versus
no.
Really?
If you want to make a super high quality alcohol, I guess it would be. But no, people in prison make. Bring it back to prison. People make
drugs like urine and like.
Well, but they do. Like that's my point. Is people are going to get their drugs
right.
Like. What we're doing is we're playing moral police on people because we have a feeling. I don't do heroin or anything like that. It's none of my business. And by the way, I'm sure there's plenty of people on heroin who do it once a month or something. That's weird. It's a weird thought. But the things they found out about addiction, first of all, is they're not as addicted to the drug as we once thought.
But you're saying I don't think it's about playing like moral police, though. I feel like there should.
Because you're saying you can't have
I'm
this.
I'm personally not. I don't know. It's like saying that we should have no laws. About anything.
No. That's a slippery slope. That's different.
That's what it sounds like.
No, it's saying why? Okay, if you're gonna get cocaine anyway.
But then you're talking.
We already have legal heroin. It's called Vicodin, oxycodone,
so let's say
I sound like a drug addict right now, don't I?
You just sound more informed. I'm learning right now. So
those are all heroin derivatives.
And
they're legal.
I guess, but then when we're talking about like legalizing stuff, then you're giving more power to the government on taxing drugs anyway.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Why do you want them
in Colorado? Because Colorado had to give a tax rebate to everyone in that state because they've sold so much marijuana, they had an excess money for their budget. They not only funded education, they gave everyone in the state, whether you use marijuana or not, a rebate. You want to find money?
Really?
Yes. That was a story.
I will.
Regardless, I mean, it is what it is. Back to the topic of prison reform.
To interrupt you, and I apologize. It says that Democratic Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey and the Republican Senator, and I guess Rand Paul. They've already co-sponsored the Redeem Act, which I was trying to learn more about. Which I love that. So I think. To saying that we have to keep going, that made me feel like I think we might, besides the fact that, Obama is definitely a very great front runner, but I'm trying to have faith that we can continue this past.
It always works better when everybody, or
is
at
down
least
for the cause.
Kind of in a sense, when everybody's down to ride. I mean, when you have politicians from both parties joining for a common goal, it works a little bit better, and it kind of puts us, the people of this nation, at ease, knowing that we're not fighting over something so important.
Exactly.
Because you would hate to have when this goes to Congress, most likely these things will pass. Otherwise, and other things, you have those doubts that are just. I mean, I don't know. I'm going through it. It's good to see that they're going together with it. So.
Do you think that they'll stay together the whole time? Because I'm kind of looking
everybody's at this. On board for this reform in the judicial system. I think it's more or less everybody has a different agenda.
You can't be fiscally responsible and be against it.
Yeah, I mean, it costs a lot of money to run jails. Yeah. I mean, what is it, $80 billion? $80
billion.
That's ridiculous.
And people don't seem concerned about that. That's what I couldn't wrap my head around.
But that's when I mean, I'm not trying to take it off topic. I think that's part of the topic is we talk about, well, they deserve to do their time for this crime. We as a society have decided that. We upped the years that people spend in prison for using drugs.
Okay.
And for holding them, right? Mm-hmm. So we're partly responsible. We need to talk to our lawmakers and make them change the laws.
I think that's definitely the route Obama's trying to take. I mean, he's trying to make sure that people understand. And I really appreciate that. It's funny because I thought he was talking directly to Kevin Hart when he said, "Don't make jokes about rape in prison." I don't know why Kevin Hart came to my head because I've heard so many jokes from comedians, and I get it. And I was like, I wonder what Mike's going to say about this. But I don't know. I get sensitive to topics like that, and I think it's important to identify.
It's a joke.
It's a really bad joke, though.
Jeff Ross did it in front of a bunch of convicts when he did his last special. He roasted a bunch of convicts in a prison, and they laughed.
Who?
Jeff Ross.
Oh, okay.
He just did a special. I mean, they seem to joke about it. We use humor. I mean, don't listen to rape jokes if you don't like them.
But you don't know when they're coming until they come.
You should know that based off. You just said that Kevin Hart says those jokes.
Didn't know that was going to come until he said it in his act or whatever. And I'm just, and honestly, nothing about Kevin Hart. I don't know if he's even made that joke. I'm saying he came to my mind because that's something I feel like he would say. Right. That's what I meant. I've never
even make the joke, but you're saying...
I don't know. He might have. He probably did, honestly, but
I do not see Kevin Hart making a rape joke.
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet, so I'm just saying, I said, that's rude. That. Okay, good. Well, then maybe he didn't. But I'm saying, in general, all I could think is the comedian world and, taking this stuff not as serious as it should be taken, and I think it's a really important...
But that's not what comedy's for. It's not to take things seriously. This is the problem with every blogger out there. They're looking at comedy like people have never heard a comedy bit and going, you know what, maybe I should rape somebody. No one's ever done that in the history of ever. No one saw a comedy bit and gone, you know what sounds good? Let's go rape people. That's not what happens. Comedy is where people, I remember when Sarah Silverman got crap for her rape joke. And by the way, she had an issue with that because she's a victim. She was a victim at one point. That's her, and she goes, that's my joke. I make that joke. I choose to make that joke. As a victim, I choose to make that joke.
I mean, you can't.
I don't think Barack Obama did it to attack all
the
he
didn't.
comedians, but he's making it. It's a serious issue. Jail is real, and the things that happen are real, and we have to take in consideration. I think more what he was saying is that we can't take jail as and laugh it off. We can't always make jokes about it and think about it in a light sense because it's real. People in there dying.
Are dying.
For every nothing. Day, for nothing. Yes. For nothing because they don't want to join a set or some other stuff and people are getting raped all the time. Just, these are real issues. And I think he's just trying to say is he wants you to look at it from a different standpoint. And I think that's all he was saying when he was trying to make that move.
Yeah.
It's pretty much.
I agree. That. We'll go with that. It's better than what I was trying to say. Yeah, he clarified it. Got it. Right. Okay, so this is another topic that I thought was very sad, but it just irritated me because it happened in Texas.
Okay.
Get it together. A woman named Sandra Bland.
Texas is never going to get it together.
I know. Sandra Bland, she's 28. She was arrested on July 10th for traffic or speeding, not a speeding, traffic light or not signaling, something very minuscule like that. And there's a video surfacing around of her being like attacked by the police. You know, she was taken out of her car, dealt with very aggressively, that kind of thing. I mean, you can see her screaming in the background, whatever. From what I've learned about her, she is an advocate of police brutality, and she's definitely spoke out about it before. I'm not sure if it's like something that I don't think she's centered around it, but it's something she's talked about here and there. You know, and so anyway, it says that she was put in prison, and then was it 3 days later?
3 days later. I think it was on Monday.
Okay, so 3 days later, she passed away in jail. She was found dead in jail, and as far as they're saying it was a suicide by trash bag, and friends and family.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So basically, they said in the jail cells that that is a common item that is placed in the cells, and that this specific jail cell has a high rate of suicides. And that seems to be the way that people do it. So they basically rip.
No one's going to kill themselves over a traffic ticket.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
That's the speculation. I think because it's happened so recently, there's not enough investigation going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what you're saying, she was, you know, a lot of her family and friends said that she was very outgoing and spontaneous and fun, but then you have other people that are saying, well, she's talked openly about her depression and PTSD, I guess she said.
But that's the thing,
but she also just released a video right before this happened.
She did. That's what
spoke about
her depression,
but also about not using violence towards police brutality, like police brutality, even though you're being attacked, to not use that type of force, which is interesting that it wasn't caught on video that she supposedly attacked this police officer.
There's no way she did, though.
I don't say there's no way. I just say
regardless,
her frame. Like, I'm sorry. I'm looking at. You're right. Like, there's a way, but it like physically makes no sense. There's like 2.5 cops. You know what I mean? Like plus like, and I mean 2.5 as in 2 full bodies and 2 guns. I mean, come on, like, and then she just. I don't see it.
It's a very eerie story. I kind of don't know what to think on the topic either, but I mean, aside from her dying, I mean, police in general need to have more types of sensitivity training and how they handle minor stops like traffic stops. I mean, the fact that he put his knee on her to subdue her while he was out the car, things like that. Those type of things
she didn't use her blinker.
aren't called for. Like, they're just not called for.
And why do you want to be the police that's involved in a situation like that? That's what I don't understand.
Because these cops aren't. These guys are high school graduates, most of them.
You make this argument.
Wait, guys. Let's talk about the town. I'm sorry. I'm like interrupting.
I'm from Houston,
but no, I want to talk about that specific town because this
Hempstead?
specific town.
Okay. Which is like an hour from me.
The only reason I'm really into this story is I read about it and it affected me, and I posted it because my question is why? I don't, not to say I don't care about her dying, but I'm not even talking about her death.
Yeah.
Why, if she was pulled over, because recently I was just pulled over and for a traffic violation and had a similar situation. Obviously I wasn't arrested. But my question is why was she pulled over for a blinker?
Right.
And then this is exact words, and this is what the sheriffs are saying. She was yanked out of the car. She was thrown to the ground. A knee was placed on her spine, and she was in a chokehold.
Yeah.
Now, there's two moves that really upset me, and then there's 3 moves that question me. Why was she yanked out of a car and not asked to step out of a car? She seemed college educated. She seemed like she was about to start a great chapter of her life.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't she comply in the fact of just stepping out of a car? That's my question. So then, now here's the history of the town. The head chief, before this incident had happened, has been in a racial case before, in the sense of that that this has happened between over three cases have been called that the police officers.
How does he get to case 2?
Right.
No, exactly.
Right.
Jesus.
And so that's where my questioning is, that from the people who are defending this. Well, we don't know all the facts. Well, I just want to look at the statistics. I just want to look at the fact, and exactly
the
what you said,
timeline.
Anthony. Why is this happening? Why is it the fact that this keeps happening, and why have we not looked at our police system and kind of reformed the training?
And that's
I don't
where
think that they're not. You think
they have.
I think they're
you think
mean.
they're not anywhere?
I don't think they're I wouldn't say anywhere, but what I'm saying is that this is part of the problem. These disparities that happen, just like we're talking about, there's 1 million black people in jail right now out of the 2.3 million that overall. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, was it 1 out of 5? Or what? Black people are more likely to be stopped as for
5 times more likely.
Risking.
Something
So
like that,
those
yeah.
things, those are the disparities, and the problem is then you got to think, well, why is this happening, and why are black people getting stopped more often, and if they are getting stopped, what is the mindset of these police officers that's stopping them? Because if it's a racial issue, which subconsciously most likely some of the times it is, you're thinking, okay, that's a black person. You might be a little bit on edge. The issues with that, and I mean, let's be honest. It happened in Texas.
Okay, it doesn't even matter where it happened because it's happened so many places.
Happened
It doesn't
everywhere,
even,
but
that doesn't matter to me as much as
When
the
it
fact
happens
that
in
like
the
you're.
South, there's a different bell that goes off to me.
I mean,
I'm just being honest.
I've lived in Texas my whole life. That's a lie. I've lived in Texas until I was 18, and
Yeah.
I'm not even defending Texas. This is a ridiculous
hard to
situation.
defend
These are
Texas.
terrible police officers.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying in general, I don't want it to be like a state issue. I think it's a world issue at this point.
It's
and
a United States issue.
it's a United States issue to the bigger point, and it's a people issue right now because there's so much of this that was not necessarily, they kept making it clear, we're not going to sweep this under the rug, but I feel like that like triggers, we're definitely sweeping this under the rug. Like that's the first thing I heard.
That's because every police department,
Everyone has to say we're not going to sweep it under the rug, and some people don't bother, and some people
and then they
make
put
sure.
injunctions to make sure that people can't see the videotapes and stuff like
And
that too. And that's what every freaking police department's doing now.
From what we heard, this chief or I'm sorry, I don't know who gave the speech at the police station, but he said that he is trying to get the tape out.
I think it's the new head.
It's Attorney General.
Okay, new sheriff. Okay, so
It's
yes,
a new sheriff in town.
So
Sorry.
literally, I don't know. I think it's we've talked about like, okay, let's not focus on her deaths, let's not focus on this, but if we just look at this in a general state, just like Jesse said, it doesn't make sense. It hasn't made sense over the past 2 years that I've been paying attention to cases like this, where it escalates from can you step out of your car to you're dead. It doesn't make sense. These timelines don't add up.
I want to just, now I'm just cutting in too much, but I
Go
wanted to say
ahead.
this. I was on Cape Cod this past week. I got pulled over around 3:30 in the morning. I hadn't drank all night. The cop pulls me over. The police officer pulls me over. I hate using the word cop because I know that upsets him. So the police officer pulled me
That's why
over.
I use it.
So the first thing that I noticed is before the police officer came to my side of the car, another police officer was in my car with a flashlight. And I was like, what? Okay, it's 3:30 in the morning. I had a hat on. Maybe they are suspecting something. Okay, sure. Then he has me put my window down. I was driving my father's truck. He didn't have a registration. I couldn't find the registration. It was a brand new car. So I gave him my license. He said I had to call my mom to find where the registration was. He said, don't do that. I'll go to my car. He goes to my car. He comes back. I said, sir, you didn't tell me why I got pulled over. And you've already looked at my license and my registration. Now I just feel kind of weird that you didn't acknowledge that. Yeah. He said, well, I pulled you over because, it seemed to me like you had crossed the yellow line twice. I was like, oh, well, I mean, I didn't, the roads are small. I was like, I haven't been drinking. Oh, you haven't been drinking? I didn't say you were drinking. Oh, well.
No, but that's what they do.
What are you assuming?
They're trying to do psychology to get you to admit something you didn't do.
Let me step out of the car.
And
now I'm nervous right now at this point because it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm tired and I just want to go home. I have a 45-minute drive ahead of me. And all I'm thinking is all the cases that we've been discussing. Right. And I'm like, okay, he's a white officer. I'm white. I'm like, what's about to happen here? So I step out of the car. It was a 7-minute test. Yeah, I was out there for longer than, I know it was longer than 5 minutes. He had me do a touching of my nose, or walking a straight line. I had to repeat sentences after. Right. But usually a test is less than that.
It's 3 minutes.
And so my leg, around the 5 minute line, my leg had started shaking, because at that point I was like, why am I even being pulled over at this point?
Yeah.
My legs started shaking, and the woman police officer had whispered something into the male's ear. Yeah. And he said, why are you shaking? I said, I'm nervous. I was like, I'm being pulled over right now. I haven't done anything wrong. And all I keep thinking about is these stories that are on TV right now. And so I really don't know what to feel personally. And he said, okay, please step back in your car. And I went in my car, and I'm like, what the hell is
He was screwing with you because they can't.
And
that's
they
do it all the time.
Dude, so wait, and there was no end to the story? You just drove off?
No, they do that all the time.
He came in and he said, I'm going to let you go.
Oh, on a warning?
And I said, if I was anybody else, if my best friend had been in the car, who is black at that time, because I've been pulled over with him before, and the first question that was asked when we were pulled over wasn't to me, it was to my friend, who was, are you on probation? Before asking me for my license, it was, are you on probation? So in this situation, my leg had shaken. America. Now I just looked at it like, imagine if it was you, Anthony. Imagine if it was you, Stacy, and your leg had shaken. And all I could think of is, why did he ask that question? Why am I being put in this situation? And thank God I was able to get away from this situation, because my mom would have went right down there and caused up a whole damn ruckus. But it put a reality check in myself of, this is what's happening. Yeah. And there's this 1 inch, one little step in which, whether it's privilege, whether it was just in that moment, me voicing that situation to that man, that look at what's happening on TV, that he thought to himself, okay, well, wait, maybe this kid might fight something.
Maybe this kid might fight.
It's not. I don't even know what to say that other than
I just wanted to put it out there because
it's a great story. It's a great story. It's a great story.
That all comes to back to you not being a person of color. I mean, it's pretty general. I mean, there's racial issues going on, and there's a lot of them in the police system. I don't even know how else to articulate that statement other than, we have these problems. They happen all the time. Thank God in that situation you weren't of another color. I mean, these issues happen, and that's the problem. Going back to the prison reform and everything that's happening, that's going good, like we said, need to keep the momentum going. I understand the prison reform, but also a lot of our year has been taken up by police brutality and police killings.
Yes, absolutely.
So we need to start the reform on the police system as well, and we need to figure out how we can help that situation right there change.
Smarter cops.
Do we fire every single police officer and start over?
No, it's not about, because the
it
thing
does.
is,
it helps. No. Having college-educated cops have
it
helped all around the world.
It's not about that. I don't think
it's not. It's about the proper teaching of the enforcement.
It's about
if you teach them this is how you need to handle a situation, they're going to do it regardless of being smart or not. You're going to handle the situation the way you were taught to handle it in your job. They are police because they love the job. So when they go out,
do it for the benefits.
They're acting in that costume. They're being police. If you teach them a certain way to handle an issue, that's the way they're going to handle it. And that's why I don't necessarily believe that all police that do dumb stuff meant to do it, some of them are just going with the motions, and that's the problem. I think it goes deeper than the person in the uniform.
Well, I think
it goes way deeper than that, and that's where we need to start tackling the issue. The whole judicial system of handling this, how are we giving sensitivity training? How are we having police understand that they're policing? Because that's another part of the problem. The police are in these communities, they don't even know. They're driving 30, 45 minutes to an area that they have no information about. So when they get approached with certain aspects of that, they get nervous and they handle it how they would handle it. And that's part of the problem too. I'm not saying it's only about. I'm not saying it's only about that. Yes, some police are inherently bad. They do stuff stupid and they're racist and that's it. But it's not just about that. It's about the system in general. Until we understand that, until we start tackling that way, we're never going to get to it. Because if you throw a police officer in jail for committing a murder, like there has, or you fire him from his job, that doesn't mean that another one's going to come right up behind him and do the same thing. But that's the thing,
yeah. The problem with that is I think if you approach it like, oh, you're a racist and this is why you did this, it's like, it's not enough. So I understand what you mean by coming another way.
It's not racist. It's systematic disparities going on that have a racial connotation to them.
Okay, but then
like
even on top of that,
a class in this as far as because reading the only reason I'm saying this, Stacey, is because in reading the Facebook post I posted, 2 of the people who were commenting I know served the United States, and they fought so hard to stand up for this police officer, and a part of me, I know the 2 people, and I wanted to have a conversation with. I understand with what you're saying, and if everyone was like them, I would get why they're fighting the way they are fighting. Because I know that the 2 people who are making those comments would never do or act upon the way that some people do. But I almost want to come to the point of view, Anthony, does it come down to that there needs to be a class taught about race, how certain races do look towards power, how certain people...
I don't think... Okay, I'm so sorry.
Because they didn't even understand what you're even having this conversation.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying to just totally disregard the fact that there needs to be training, there needs to be classes. Those are very important things. But then that's where I go and agree with Michael in terms of education. It's not just about like put them in a class. That doesn't make sense. Like I went to a college that had racial disparities and had bullshit things that happened, and they're still trying to put those classes in, and I'm like, y'all, these people are 19. I learned so much. Yeah, I learned so much in college from 18 to 20, like so much.
Education teaches you empathy.
It does. It does to an extent.
Yes, it does.
No, to an extent. But I think it's about family though. And I think it's where you're raised though.
Yeah, it's about that, but it has nothing to do with education. I'm gonna stop you right there because I went to Mizzou, and regardless, we have doctorates, master program people that are graduating bachelor's just like me. In psychology, with me, psychology, you know what that is, like the study of the mind, how people think, just as effing racist as some of the dumbest things I've seen.
So why did you say a class?
But I'm saying it has nothing to do with an education. It has nothing to do with an education. It's about
one requirement that helps actually pull, because people who are more educated are statistically less racist. You can anecdote.
I don't think you can. I don't think
that's 100% true.
I don't think you can. How is it 100% true? There's no way that.
God damn it! I wish I had internet right now because I would prove it to you. Because they did the test, and the more someone's educated, the more likely they are to be empathetic toward other people.
The thing is, you can't write down.
You can anecdote and say, "Well, that guy's racist," but that's not what we're talking about. How do you control more of that? You control by making sure there's educated people who are smarter. We want smarter people before we teach them.
I don't
How about
think
that? How come you make $60,000 a year, full benefits, full pension, and you don't have an education?
My argument isn't that you're completely wrong. I'm saying you can't track racism. You can't tell me because I'm more educated, I'm less racist.
No,
you can't tell me.
Yes, you can. They've proven
it. You can't. You wouldn't know. You would have to know every single person.
No, that's not how. No, that's a fallacy. You don't have to know every single person. What they found is within the confines of education, people with higher educations are less racist. They're more likely to have other races as friends. This is across the board. So because you know what college also does? College puts you in a situation where you're around other races,
and you can still be racist.
Yes, I didn't say you can't be racist. No, when did I say that this will cure racism?
I'm not saying you said it will cure, but
Mike, I get where you're coming. You're saying there's a less likelihood of you being racist. The only thing is, I don't know the statistics. I can't tell you. You might have them. What I'm saying is I went to the University of Missouri. I'm saying by
experience, that doesn't make sense.
And knowing what I know, and being around the people that I've been around, and growing up how I've grown, I know that it has nothing to do with education. More or less, it has something to do with the upbringing and the area that you grew up in, and how you see stuff
how you see
the
world from the beginning going up. Because
I don't disagree with that either. I'm not saying that isn't part.
And that puts a disadvantage. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that puts a disadvantage of somebody who was raised by racist parents and they didn't raise themselves.
Yeah, they shouldn't be a cop. How about that?
Well, that's the thing. But the thing is, you don't know that. You can't write that down.
I said if your uncle or dad is in the Klan, you should not be a cop. And there's plenty of people in the Klan who are cops.
I mean,
so
I agree with that, right? But I just, I mean,
but even that,
you can't. That's something you can't see. That, and that's the same kind of argument they make with like the background checks of police officers and stuff. Like some of them saying you can't tell some of these people are just outright crazy. I understand that there are all bad seeds. All I'm saying is that in order to kind of help that a little bit, we need to think about different avenues of approaching the situation. Because I think what's happening now is most people are like, oh, cops are racist, you know, that's a white cop, that's a black kid, something happened, rather than, well, why is that cop doing what he's doing? Like, why is he acting the way? Is he legitimately racist? Is there background, you know, things we've seen, which we have, in some of the instances with a lot of the unarmed black men being killed? We've seen backgrounds that have obviously showed that they've had kind of a racist past. But also, we got to also think it's part of the system. There are things going on that we have no control of that other people do, and we need to kind of figure out how we can tap into that to make these certain things change.
Take away their guns.
It's so interesting because
and hold them accountable more. I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily like not take away their gun. I mean, I don't even want to get into that because I know I don't even get into that. I know how you're gonna be. But what I'm gonna say is they do need to hold them a lot more accountable. They do need to be under the telescope a little bit more. And I know that bothered them, like how we talked about in Baltimore. A lot of them were kind of on a fake strike because they didn't want, you know, to be persecuted as a police officer and something come down. But that's kind of what needs to happen, I think, on a larger scale, though. And
they want a hall pass, though, for being a cop. Like, oh, because I'm a cop and I'm in these situations, I get a pass at any bad thing I do, which is where we need to stop it, because we're still honoring that by every time we just suspend one of these guys for a few months, and they'll have multiple, like, he had 3 other incidents, right? In this case, he had 3 previous incidents. He's still on the force, on the street, protecting. I did air quotes in case you're just listening. He's protecting people. That guy, the guy, how many strikes until you go, you know what, you're not fit to be a police officer in this community?
Yeah.
I say 1, maybe. You might get 1.
It's interesting just because we've talked about this a lot, and we're going to wrap up soon. We've talked about, I feel like over the past year I've been on the show, we've had a lot of this. You mentioned that police brutality has taken over our year in a sense. And I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, and somebody was like, oh, it's been happening though. It's been happening. And now it has. But I think to a certain, but even that, I think it's not just a phone thing. I feel like it's like a circle thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, maybe it's been happening totally and I just missed it for this many years, but the extent it's happening and the way it's happening and the hate that's going, I feel like it's like this circle thing, and it's kind of freaking me out. So anyway, I don't know what you guys have to say about that, but we'll wrap because there's a lot more to talk about. So we're going to talk off screen. If you guys want to tweet us during the week, please keep in touch with us. Where can everybody find you guys?
Again, Anthony Martin, Black Fist Activist, BLK Fist Activist on all social networks. Check me out. Tweet me, Instagram me. Let me know what you think, and I always respond.
At Michael Timon, at Michael J. Timon on Twitter, spelled on the screen because it's weird. And I'll be at Infusion Lounge the next few weeks on Saturday night. So.
Nice. You guys can keep in touch with me on Twitter and Instagram at OneTakeStace. Make sure you share your thoughts. We would love to hear them, and we'll see you next Friday.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
No, I wasn't saying.
Doesn't matter. What?
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.